for distributing PPE throughout the city, or creating different initiatives for small businesses or businesses at large to maintain, stay afloat, get through this time.
With us, how do you log attendance? Like, you know that who's on? Are the of all the committee members, as you get on, if you could just maybe make a comment in the comment section, that'll be great. Ratty, we just started a minute ago, Karen. Ratty just started introducing himself, so could you continue?
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, so over the last few months, we just turned to really economic recovery and helping the city just bounce back, not just economically, but everywhere. So as I mentioned, PPE distribution and procurement, setting up clinics, helping small businesses, whatever it is, and working, of course, very closely with our partner agencies, whether it's SBS, health hospitals, whatever it was. So today, just want to first introduce myself. I work with the government community relations team here at EDC. Today, you're going to hear about 3 different things that EDC is working on. One being the Small Business Resource Network, which is a partnership between the Partnership for New York, Peterson Foundation, and Christina is going to walk us through all of that. We're also going to talk about the Design Core Initiative, which is an initiative to help restaurants throughout the city. And then Sandra is going to talk us through the Neighborhood Challenge. So with that, I'm going to stop and I'm going to turn it over to Christina to introduce herself. And from there, once the EDC team introduces, Christina, you can just jump in.
Fine. Thank you, Christina. And nice meeting you, Ratty.
Yeah, thanks, Ratty. Hi, all. This is Christina Yoder. I'm on the strategy team at EDC. I've been working with a group of internal stakeholders to help and operationalize the Small Business Resource Network. I've been with EDC for the past 8 months, and before that worked in consulting on economic and community development issues across the country. And I will pass it to Lindsay if she's on from our team.
I believe Lindsay is in as an attendee. So.
Okay. Well, that's fine. We can give her the access as Christina runs through her portion later. In the meantime, Sandra, if you could introduce yourself.
You can email with the password and another link, because you can come on as a participant.
Yeah, I put her on as a panelist.
I'm sorry, as a panelist. Okay, you guys can keep going.
Awesome. So, Sandra, you want to maybe introduce yourself now?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us today. My name is Sandra Dolder. I'm also with the New York City Economic Development Corporation, and I've been at EDC for over 7 years now, working in our industry development group. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but I'll talk mainly about our Neighborhood Challenge initiative. Thank you.
Okay, so.
And I believe Lindsay's on now.
Hey, sorry about that. Let's see, my camera is a little bit skewed. Hi, I'm Lindsay Mayer. I'm with the planning division at EDC, and a few colleagues and partners, including the Architects Institute of America and design advocates, as well as NYC by Design, have come together to create an initiative to support restaurants by connecting design industry professionals to restaurant owners. And so I'm on to talk a little bit about that initiative.
Okay,
Great. Thanks, Lauren. With that, we'll go ahead and get started. As already mentioned, we're going to be talking about the Small Business Resource Network first, and then the NYCX by Design, and then the Neighborhood Challenge Initiative. So the New York City Small Business Resource Network was built in partnership between the New York City Economic Development Corporation, the Partnership Fund for New York City, and Small Business Services, with a $3 million grant from the Peterson Foundation. And it aims to serve as a central node into the small business ecosystem for all small businesses. The idea is that we've curated a list of over 300 public and private resources that are available to any businesses that come through the network. Businesses, once they fill out an intake form online, are then matched with a specialist. That specialist talks to them about their needs, whether it's financing, marketing, technology, legal, mentorship, volunteer support, whatever it might be, that specialist walks that business through what their needs are and then connects them with one of the available resources within the network. So Roddy, if you wouldn't mind skipping down 2 slides. Specialists are actually staff that have been hired at each of the 5 borough chambers. So we have 22 specialists in total, about 3 or 4 at each of the chambers, 1 borough lead within each of the chambers. And then also we have 1 restaurant specialist that is meant to target restaurants in particular. And then we have 2 tech specialists, which are meant to help businesses with their technology needs, whether that's getting a new website, whether that's getting onboarded onto social media, helping to manage social media, a whole host of technology needs that businesses have in this new era. The tech specialists are meant to support them and also connect them to resources in that field. Next slide. As I mentioned, businesses come to the website, www.nycsmallbusinessresourcenetwork.com, and they are brought to an intake form. This short intake form just collects a couple of basic details about the business as well as information on their need. And then from there, they're connected directly on the back end with a specialist within 24 hours. Next slide. So to date, the Small Business Resource Network launched in late September of this year. We have received intake forms from over 1,700 small businesses from across all boroughs and have made 3,000 referrals to public and private resources within the ecosystem. As you can see on this slide here, we have great distribution from across all of the boroughs. Brooklyn in particular is ranked, you guys have the highest representation. So 23% of all businesses coming in from the resource network are from Brooklyn. We also have seen high diversity across the businesses coming in. 76% of businesses that have come in through the network are owned by women or Black, Indigenous people of color. And then most of the businesses that are coming in are in that micro business category, so 1 to 4 employees. But we serve businesses of all types and sizes as long as they're under 100 employees. The top 5 businesses that we've seen thus far are restaurants and coffee shops, beauty-based businesses, food and beverage, business and professional services companies, and clothing and fashion companies. And the most common asks that we hear from businesses are, probably no surprise, number 1, marketing, business strategy consulting, and procurement opportunities. There are resources within the network today that can help across all of these different categories, including Harvard Business School alumni to help businesses with strategy consulting, support from Fiserv and other private sector marketing agencies, as well as webinars and other educational resources from public agencies on the marketing side, procurement opportunities across a whole host of public and private entities. And on the financing side, we are elevating a number of public resources as well as trying our best to secure new grant and loan resources for small businesses. One notable one is that we have recently secured a couple $100,000 to help businesses start their websites. So $500 grants for businesses that are in need of websites. They can get connected to that grant capital as well as some freelance support to help them set up their website and some discounted services on Squarespace to get that website stood up. Next slide. So how you guys can help, we're always looking to get the word out. Like I said, we've already had a lot of great participation in the resource network, but we want as many businesses in New York City as possible to take advantage of it. We really see this as a critical resource to help save small businesses in this time. So we have put together palm cards, print ads, and flyers that can be distributed either physically or virtually. To get connected to some of the print ads and palm cards, we will direct you to the Brooklyn Borough Chamber. In some instances, the chambers do already have printed resources that you guys can access and coordinate to get from them. In other instances, the partners we're working with may need to print those out, but we can certainly give you copies of files. So are we taking questions now, Patty, or should we take questions at the end?
question and comment before you continue. So Karen, I know that you guys have, I get your emails as a member of Evergreen. I know you guys have great distribution. Have you sent around anything about this program? And we can,
I'm sorry. Getting a lot of feedback.
ask if Karen, if Evergreen is familiar with these programs and if it was sent around your network, if the EDC can get you anything to help get the word out, because that's very, you have a real grassroots network in the membership of Evergreen in North Brooklyn.
Sure, definitely. And I'm sure you guys are working with all the bids in the area.
Yes,
So
we have.
primarily Evergreen works with the industrial manufacturing businesses in North Brooklyn. You guys are probably familiar with our work. However, so if the programs, like especially for, I guess I have a question. I know this is primarily sources for the restaurants and for retail. What do you guys do for referrals for the manufacturing businesses?
So while businesses that I mentioned are the most common ones that come through the platform, we have seen a number of industrial businesses and manufacturing businesses come in as well. So there are sources that are particularly targeted to those. So we would encourage all types of businesses to come in through their resource network. Also, if you know of any resources like yourself that are particularly relevant for those types of resources, we can also list you as a resource on the resource network so that we can act as a referral channel to you as well, to you or other partners.
That would be fantastic. So any information we send out in the blast almost on a daily basis with, any resources that's available to businesses.
Yeah, that would be great. Karen, let's connect offline. I believe my email address is going to be shared after the fact.
Yeah, Karen is on that's a very important connection. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Jay, any comments? Because Jay Solly, who's on the line and speaking a little later, is running a micro resource in Bushwick. And I think, Jay, we should also get maybe even we could get printed information from via the chamber to try to get the word out, especially to some of the local businesses. I think, Jay, if you want to say anything, you have to unmute yourself. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I think Jay is trying to talk. We just can't hear him.
Jay, I think you have to unmute yourself. Marie, is Jay on as a participant or as an attendee?
He should be an attendee. I'm not.
He should be on. You're talking about Jay. He's
Jay
on
Shaw.
as a panelist,
Yeah, he can. So Jay,
and
just
his microphone is on. I don't understand why we can't hear him.
Yeah.
Jay, if you have any questions for me, we can also connect via email.
Okay.
Maybe if you could write it in the chat, Jay.
Look, you can write it in the chat and we can ask your question. Okay, we'll keep moving with the presentation and then.
Okay. Okay.
Is that any better, anyone?
Okay.
I do apologize.
Oh, Jay, that's you. You want to say anything?
No, I was just trying to make sure my audio worked. I do apologize. Okay, yeah, I was just going to say, yes, we'll share with the chamber, and we're working with the area bids, particularly with the small businesses, restaurants with the Grand Map bid in Grand Street. We're happy to get the word out. So no further comment. Sorry about that.
Marie, we'll send out contact details of everybody on from the EDC. It would be great for you to be both a resource working with local. So I think it'll be on both directions and being a referral.
Agreed.
Okay, fantastic.
Okay, thanks.
Floor back to the EDC. I'm design
Yeah.
for.
I'm sorry, Toby. I did actually have one quick question regarding the grant for the website. How much funding is available?
We have
I know it's
$500. Yep, $500 per business.
And is there a lot of money like allocated in the pool for this? Have you been, like in other words, will it be depleted soon?
The idea is to distribute all of the capital by February, the beginning of February. There is, I don't remember, unfortunately, the number off the top of my head, but I think there is opportunity for at least 100 businesses to get access to the funding, if not more. The application just opened this week on Monday, so I would imagine there's still available capital in this pot. And if there's not in this pot, we are looking to expand this program. We're looking to this as a pilot, and depending on demand that we hear from this pilot, we're going to go out to further funders around the same topic. So I would encourage any businesses to definitely apply this round since it's still very early in the application process. But if they don't get it, to expect there to be more money opened up early next year.
Now, the other question I have for you is are there like resources that you have? I mean, there are some retailers that are really only retail based and really don't have websites. Are there web developers in the network that you're referring people to?
So for that specific program, we are referring people to individual freelancers that we have relationships with, or individuals at digital agencies to help them develop the website.
That's, I think, a great resource. Karen, we got to get the word out quickly so the maximum of that dollars flows into Brooklyn. Let's start promoting that. Okay. Any other questions? Anybody else? And any panelists anybody who's in the audience has to raise their hand, but the panelists just unmute and ask. Okay, we'll move on to the design presentation.
All right, thank you. And so one of the programs within the Small Business Resource Network is the Design Corps, which, as I mentioned, is an initiative that connects design industry professionals to restaurant owners.
Because there's a lot of back, so if everybody could just mute themselves. Only the speaker should be unmuted. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay. And Ratty, you can go to the next slide. There we go. So the Design Corps is an initiative that is to serve restaurant owners navigate all the different guidelines and a lot of the different all of the different procedures that happen within the DOT's Open Restaurants program. So what we found was back in June when the Open Restaurants program came and all the restaurants were allowed to have outdoor dining, is there was a lot of confusion in terms of what it meant to be compliant. And so we saw that there was a major gap that was needed to be filled by having a resource created through volunteers to assist restaurant owners become compliant. And so the Design Corps is a website through NYC by Design that restaurant owners can go and log on and create a profile as a way of receiving assistance for free. And so it helps restaurant owners navigate the health guidelines to ensure compliance. It helps them source materials for weather resistance and long-term use. It helps maximize space, particularly when you have a lot of a difficult frontage. And it also helps ensure for a safe environment for outdoor diners. The next slide. And so we came together with several different external stakeholders, including AIA, NYC by Design, Design Advocates, and we came together and created this platform. And through each of them, they were able to design a program that had industry professionals at the table, as well as architects to design this program. And so the next slide shows what the website looks like. So if you are a restaurant, you go on, you are able to input exactly what it is that you need and what you need assistance in. And then volunteers are able to do the same, and then also able to then self-connect and find each other based off of those needs. And so we've had, right now we've had upwards of about 50 restaurants receive different consultations for free. And we receive new submissions every single day. And the next slide is, sorry, go back one, is just a testimonial of 2 different restaurants that have received help from 2 different architects. And so what you see here is one of the owners up in East Harlem. Her restaurant was built on a hill, and so there was no way that she was able to figure out how to build any kind of outdoor structure that had a covering that would also be able to support itself. And she saved upwards of $20,000 through several different consultations with this architect. The architect was also able to connect her to a general contractor who ended up volunteering and also doing the labor for free, and also helped find discounts on the materials as well. And so the overall financial savings, let alone just the expansion to the network of this architect, proved to be incredibly valuable for this particular restaurant owner. We had another restaurant owner in Midtown who received assistance with landscaping. They were able to also find a discount on the different plans to survive the winter. And so we just have seen an outpour of really incredible stories come from this particular initiative. And so as you are all aware, indoor dining is now prohibited. And so I think that outdoor dining will continue to be the way in which restaurants survive and to be the lifeline for these restaurants to stay open. And so this is a way and for restaurants to be able to actually talk to a person, either over the phone or video conference, or oftentimes in person, to make sure that they are able to understand exactly what it means to have a safe outdoor dining environment, and also have additional support to answer any other questions. And so you can find all of this on the website, as well as through the SBS resources, DOT's resources, and of course the Small Business Resource Network as well. So let me know if you have any questions, and we can also definitely follow up with materials after the presentation.
I'd like to chime in just real quick.
Go ahead.
Can you get this to the Graham Ave bid? Particularly, we need Cantonese, Spanish, and English health warnings for the business improvement district. Would this be something we can coordinate with Design Corps?
When you say health warnings, do you mean like signage?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually have a couple of people who are already doing exactly that. And so we have a lot of these. I can follow up with some flyers that have a lot of the things like the Core 4, which making sure that you're socially distanced, washing your hands, doing all of the things that are the most impactful in terms of reducing transmission. And we have that in an assortment of different languages. So we're happy to send that to you.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Looking to the board and the crowd for questions regarding either of the 2 business resources that we just mentioned. Just want to make sure that we are able to have Lindsay and Christina answer any questions before we end up transitioning to the neighborhood challenge. But the one thing that I mentioned is this is extremely helpful to us because what we need, frankly, is to make sure that businesses on the ground are getting this information. So it's one thing for us to be able to provide services and have them, but unless people know about it and are actively engaging, it doesn't mean anything, right? So any ways that you all can help, as you said, amplify through emails, or if there are big events or people going down through the commercial corridors and flyering about other things, if we can tag onto those type of initiatives, that is what we have seen to be really helpful in different neighborhoods, and we'll love your support on things like that.
Yeah, so I just had one other question on the restaurant design initiative, and then we could try to follow up offline and be helpful in getting the word out. So is it basically is the program focused on connecting volunteers with people that are approaching you and restaurants, or are there also city level resources?
I don't think I quite caught the last of your question, but what was that?
About is the focus of the effort to connect volunteers with restaurants, or are there also city level resources being provided?
Yeah, so I think the second part of your question is more part of the Small Business Resource Network, which has the compilation of all of the different resources. The Design Corps is a program within that, and that is just focusing on making sure that the restaurants have all of the different supports they need to be compliant within their outdoor dining. So it's really design specific. That said, we've had volunteers who are able to, go well beyond that and connect them to different city programs or actually other just resources that are currently out there.
Thank you. Okay, I think if there are no more questions, I think we're ready to move on to the last part of the EDC's presentation.
Awesome. Okay, so Christina and Lindsay, thank you so much. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. And then I'm going to turn it over to Andrew.
Just send us a copy of the presentation, right?
Absolutely. I just can't do it while I'm driving, apparently, like while I'm driving the presentation. So I'll send it to you tonight. And we'll also connect so we can share flyers and other information as well. Okay. Let me transition over to Sander. And the last thing I will say before actually giving it to Sander is this Thursday, we are also having a webinar for offices of elected officials, community boards, and others, associations and such, that it's pretty similar to this information. There will probably be one more resource in there that we have spoken to Karen about. That is the Business Intelligence and Development Program, but otherwise, most of this information is going to also be there. So if you're able to join, or if you know someone that wasn't able to make it today, welcome them, invite them to join us on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And I can also follow up with that link. All right, Sander, all yours.
All right, thank you. Again, thank you for having me today. Next slide, please. Well, I think before I get into the actual initiative, I will probably spend 2 minutes just giving a little bit of overview, because I think that sometimes EDCs identify mostly with real estate sort of activities, and there's a lot to what we do that's a little bit different than that. Next slide, please. I wonder if I can. Oh, there we go. You can go to the next one. I guess I already covered that. So part of the group I'm in is really thinking about the future of the economy. We were created about really in 2008 after the last financial crisis, with really the idea of diversifying the economy. So one of the things we do here is do a lot of projects around, over the last 10 years, really around building the tech sector here in New York. And that involves a whole host of things, as you can see on this slide. All that's to say is we work across with different government agencies, with the different incubators in the city, on a lot of the academic programs and some of the financial institutions here in New York. Next slide, please. And over the years, we've really gone into a lot of the sectors in New York, primarily, I would say, life sciences, tech, and we do quite a bit in the sustainability side. Have been a big focus of ours, but we also have teams certainly that are focused on fashion. We rolled out a big cybersecurity initiative 2 years ago, and we continue our work in sort of the new areas, emerging areas of media and manufacturing. Next slide, please. And so coming into the current situation now, without going too much detail on this slide, all that's to say is we always look at sort of where there are gaps in the different sectors across New York. And one thing with the current crisis, which is very apparent, is just so much of the hardship has been on small businesses. So that can be anything from food services, entertainment, even some of a lot of the personal care across New York has been really struggling. So that's an area that we've been keen to support, not only from an immediate term, as the last two initiatives have really talked about, but also thinking about what's the future of retail, what's the future of food services, what's the future of entertainment and nightlife in New York. Next slide, please. And so one thing here that we also did at the same time is thinking about what sort of behavior change we're going to see in how consumers are purchasing goods or using and frequenting different businesses. And there are a couple themes. We identified about a dozen of them, but to quickly kind of highlight a few, the fact that everything's becoming digital is a clear one that has seen a lot of change already in the last 8-9 months. And that's just going to continue even after the pandemic is over. There's a lot of change regarding space. You saw that on the last the design core with open restaurants and things like that. So businesses have to really think creatively on how to change their ways. There's a move towards contactless shopping and commerce. So that can be anything from, sort of the payment, but really you're thinking about anything in the store. There's a lot there, a lot of innovation happening in there. Clearly, working from home changes the patterns on how people purchase goods and where they purchase goods. And the last one that has been a strong index is just that large corporations have had an easier time in this crisis and have benefited in some ways from taking some business from small businesses. And so a lot of those trends we're conscious of as we're thinking about how to support the economy moving forward. Next slide, please. And so that's sort of where we were thinking about, well, there's a lot of initiatives that are focused on how do we, and rightfully so, and how do we help small businesses right now to deal with what's happening on the ground. In order to avoid duplicating efforts, one initiative that we were thinking about is how do we help small businesses think about a future post-pandemic as well, and think about how can we look at the different solutions out there that are emerging that are not necessarily quite mainstream yet, but they're very promising solutions to help small businesses as time goes on and some of the trends that I mentioned previously become even more prominent. And so we created the Neighborhood Challenge, which is actually an old initiative. We've ran it for a couple of years, but we've reformulated this year to really kind of focus on thinking about storefront businesses. Next slide, please. So the Neighborhood Challenge is essentially a piloting program over the last couple of years. And part of it is to really, as it's an initiative that we work in tandem with the small businesses services, they really manage and work through the different bids across New York, so 70 plus bids. And we at EDC kind of facilitates more sort of the engagement from the technology sector, from sort of the innovative solutions that are out there. And we help sort of match opportunities to really showcase these technologies, these solutions, and help sort of scale the ones that we feel have a large impact and are helpful to the small business community. And so it's a program to help foster this collaboration. It's to really kind of think about the long-term resilience, but certainly, we're also interested in finding ways we can be immediately impactful. And it's also a way for us to provide a window into some of these new innovations for government institutions. So think of the way if we had done a similar sort of setup for the mobility sector a couple of years ago, we could have engaged perhaps companies like Lyft and Uber a lot earlier on and develop policies that are more fair to the overall community versus not having addressed that necessarily at an appropriate time. And so this kind of helps expose a lot of these solutions that are out there and help government understand what are the implications, what are the policy implications from these type of solutions. And so one of the things that we really concentrated on here is bring a holistic group of partners. So you have a lot of city agencies, you have many of the incubators and accelerators across the city. This SBS has worked with the bids, and we've surfaced over 70 challenges that small businesses face. And we're hosting that on a platform, which I'll share after this call. And the idea is to sort of do a matchmaking on that platform where it's an open innovation platform where we have all the challenges up there. And now we are in the process of soliciting solutions to it. So we've started soliciting solutions over the last couple weeks. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we started soliciting solutions. And one of the things we've noticed in the last, through the initial wave when we were capturing all the challenges or a lot of the challenges that small businesses face, it kind of fell into 4 buckets. One was around this digital piece, this digital business model. So while the Small Business Recovery Network has the stipends to build websites, to build sort of a online presence for a lot of small businesses, on our end, where we're interested in solutions is thinking about if a small business has that presence, how do we make sure that people are shopping there? What are there aggregate e-commerce platforms that help bring these small businesses together to make it an easier shopping experience for someone? We're looking at how do you compete with Amazon Prime? And in a world where that's a one-stop shop, how can we help promote small businesses and that can deal with that? And so there's a lot of solutions in that space, for instance. Another one to look at, and being a Williamsburg resident, I am well aware of a lot of the performance venues and music venues around the area. One area that's been picking up quite a bit is around live streaming, and thinking about that is an additional business vertical for some of these performance venues, and all the jobs that are associated with those venues. Is there a way to kind of capture that? And so there's a lot of innovation happening in that space, and we're really looking to find places where we can really partner to help scale those solutions, to help pilot it and improve it, as we're seeing a lot of traction already happening in other parts of the country and world, but certainly even in New York City. And all that's to say, there's a lot of different areas. There's 4 categories that are main ones. Is around digital, around sort of redesigning the operations inside our restaurant, inside our retail operation. There's a lot of challenges that are faced around the curbside. And so that, of course, open restaurants is one way to address it. But within a world where there's more deliveries and more activity on the curbside, there's more scrutiny around it. And so there's solutions that need to be found to deal with that. And that has been something that's been surfaced oftentimes with the bids, different bids in New York. And then the last piece is really around looking at how do we deal with storefront vacancies, and is there ways to address it in a creative way? And so there, we've also been trying to capture some of the solutions that fall underneath that. Next slide, please. And so what does that mean? So where we're at now is we've been starting to capture these solutions. We're working with SBS to really capture small businesses that want to participate. So far, we've worked really through the bids to do that. But certainly, if there are small businesses or performance venues that are interested in participating in a program, we can work with them directly as well. We are engaging the tech community and the academic community to submit ideas, but certainly that's also something that we're looking at the local level. Anyone can submit an idea. It's not just restricted to tech companies. And the last piece is if we're looking for partners. So we're certainly looking for, we have a lot of city groups that are involved. We have the tech community involved, but certainly, we are always looking for other types of associations. We have a couple associations around hospitality, but certainly around music. I think that'll be one that we will be interested in finding more. And what we're looking to do in the new year around those 4 areas I mentioned is establish working groups where we can start sharing a lot of the solutions that we've been able to track, that we've identified that could be interesting to see sort of the interest from these different working groups. And so there's the website here, and of course I can share more information after this presentation, and happy to answer any questions now. Thank you again.
Hello? Yes. Okay. Yeah. So I have a question, a comment, and then we'll open up to everybody else. So do you have? So we have some pretty good relationships in North Williamsburg with the live music venues. Do you need help with those introductions, or are you already talking to them? Like, the Brooklyn Bowl, Rough Trade, and the House of Yes, and all of those guys, Mirage.
Well, we have some connections. We haven't been. Well, because we're right now soliciting, let's put it this way, I would welcome the introductions. I will say that we are probably 2 months off from really getting the solutions fully on board so we can have fruitful conversations. But some of the companies and innovations we've spoken to so far are things that Baby's All Right is already doing some things like that around live streaming. There's already some venues around Williamsburg that are doing that, but certainly welcoming any introductions that would be interested in participating in a program like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big part of the economic framework in the neighborhood. And I think you probably can also create a pretty interesting working group, in and around that as well.
Yeah.
Because, like Baby's All Right has their solution, and maybe things may be happening that would be helpful to the whole industry, but percolated to the surface, and other venues out about it.
Absolutely. One thing to mention there, we also are working with NYC & Co., the marketing group for the city of New York. And one thing that we're really interested is connecting these venues, also the connection between these performance venues and other cultural institutions and tourism. And so that's something that's very top of mind for the Tourist Bureau in New York, because they want to make sure there's a way to highlight that as well. So there's also some potential there to kind of really build a campaign around this.
Very, very. Karen, any thoughts or comments, or anybody else?
No, just definitely, if you need the connections, just, let us know.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I would also say that, I know that it may not be part of your mandate, but, Evergreen is very deep in the community with the manufacturers. And I think it's when everybody's looking towards the future and you're creating this sort of program to vet new technologies, thinking through the future of manufacturing and the upgrades and innovation that companies are going to need to stay competitive, it's something certainly to put on your radar screen. I don't know if it fits into the mandate of what you're doing right now, but there are a lot of such businesses within this community board. Especially, yeah.
Absolutely. One note on that. I mean, maybe part of the reason why I wanted to give the overview at the beginning is to kind of give the more holistic picture of what we're looking at. One trend that I did not mention is sort of the push towards more regional manufacturing systems and sort of the local supply chains. And so absolutely, it might not necessarily be tied to this specific program, but there's definitely an interest in sort of thinking about the advanced manufacturing and a lot of the innovation that's going to happen over the next decade in that space.
But even in regards to sales and technology, having to go online and change their, direct to market sales.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point.
Okay. Thank you, Sandra. If you don't mind sending us the presentation, that would be
Of course.
great.
Of course.
Yeah.
Anybody comments?
Sander, hi, Jay Sully from Sun. Just one quick question. What's our response to senior populations who shop in some of these small bids and both their stores and their customers aren't going to quite make the digital gap?
Yeah, very good question. I think the one of the things that we've noticed was, and this is more my personal take. It's very hard to force someone to completely change the way they operate if they've operated for a long time. Some of the solutions that we've uncovered so far that we find pretty interesting are the ones that don't require the business owner to necessarily have to do that uplifting. But you also at the same time, and the business model is around, of course, taking. So when you look at something like Seamless, right? They do all the service. The problem with it is they take a 30% cut. And that is what we were looking to avoid. That's sort of where I was talking about. It's better to get in early because you can create sort of a more fair environment where you would take 10% or 10 or 15. And what we've seen so far with a lot of these solutions, especially the digital solutions, they only take maybe 5% from the business and they make up 5% in other sort of ways. But they basically handle the digital side of what that store would do, and in many ways, and including the delivery, and a lot of them kind of have same day delivery on a lot of the things that they do, and this applies also to say the live streaming where there are reasonable rates, and the point is find partners, find some of the solutions that have reasonable rates, but are also able to take over some of the functions that, like you mentioned, a small business might not want to do, or might not be necessarily comfortable doing. And so we're very conscious of that, and that's certainly the reality with when it comes to digitalization.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Sander, and we look forward to conversation and getting a copy of the presentation. This is great work.
Great,
Thanks everyone for making the time.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Bye, everyone.
So we're going to move to Joseph Frank to give us of what's going on right now. Retailers struggling in terms of the commercial leases, and then we'll hear from Jay Sol, who will give us an update on the work he's doing with neighborhood food relief and economic development in the East Williamsburg Bushwick community. Go ahead, Joseph.
Sure. Should I share my
Yeah,
screen?
you want to help you share the screen?
Let's spread it out. But yeah, I mean, I can start without the screen share. So, just a little bit of context. I'm a neighborhood resident.
I'm sorry, who am I sharing the screen with? I gave it to Jay.
Joseph Francis is going to do his presentation first.
Okay, let me move that, okay?
Okay, can you guys see my screen? Hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I could see your screen.
Okay, great. So, yeah, look, I'm a neighborhood resident. I work in the restructuring industry, so I've been dealing with a lot of retail restructurings recently, a couple different industries, retailers, oil and gas, etc. But also involved in the neighborhood. So wanted to just give a quick update on lease renegotiations. I'll give some context of what I'm seeing in the market outside of the New York area, and then just talk about what landlords and tenants can be thinking about when they're out there trying to renegotiate these leases during COVID. So, you know, high level takeaways to start with. We've seen big changes in fundamentals, in the profitability of a lot of businesses, particularly local businesses. This is sort of short term, you know, obviously with shutdowns and things like that, but also changing long term, you know, shifts to e-commerce, accelerating, you know, changes in maybe the way people decide to, you know, eat out or not eat out at restaurants. And that creates a lot of room to capture economics for both sides. I think there's economics mostly gone, but there's also a lot that's up in the air. So really there's a kind of a big fight going on between landlords and tenants right now. Biggest challenges for landlords being collecting cash and just managing overall defaults. Biggest challenges for tenants, maintaining liquidity and just reorganizing their business around the new reality. And kind of the problem right now is that there's just no roadmap and there's no market standard lease adjustment or lease renegotiation in light of COVID. And I think that's particularly true in New York. Not a lot of data available in the New York area with considerable variability by neighborhood, by type of business. So I haven't seen, and I looked briefly, but I have seen a little bit of data to kind of macro scale on what's going on in the market, you know, across the country, but not very much on the New York area specifically, other than a few broker surveys, but those are really focused on the office space market. So the key consideration I think tenants are thinking about, I think personally, my opinion, this is me personally, helpful to share high-level financials with the landlords to the extent that you're, you know, keeping records of your financial statements, and to the extent that it supports your negotiation position if you're facing a more kind of challenging time, so that everybody can be on the same page from a numbers perspective about what's going on with the underlying business. Big trade-off between, you know, flexibility or long-term leverage. I think there's opportunities to gain long-term economics by signing deals at lower rates and locking them in. But alternatively, you know, you may prefer flexibility by doing something like a percentage rent to bridge a short-term gap. But if you do that, you may end up long-term kind of getting a little more, losing a little more economics on the back end if things go back to normal faster. One thing to think about, does your business rely upon, you know, specific geography in the same way as it did before the pandemic? Things like takeout, delivery, and curbside. Those may actually, you know, continue beyond even some type of vaccine. So you have the ability and potentially the negotiating leverage to go to a slightly lower cost market, maybe a different part of town, or maybe all you need is a kitchen, or, you know, share a kitchen with a couple other restaurants. You know, I think it's helpful for all landlords and tenants. You'll see this on the next slide, but checking with neighboring businesses, just creating that conversation to figure out a new normal market rent per square foot in your neighborhood, which should also be, you know, you should sort of agree with your landlord on what the market comparable average rent is in the neighborhood. Have seen a lot of rent deferrals kicking the can down the road. It creates a lot of leverage on the back end. Can be very problematic. I think those chickens haven't come home to roost yet. And one note is that if possible, I think it's probably, if you're going for abatements, you may want to try to push abatements into 2020, because I think to the extent that landlords don't want to take write-offs in 2021, I think that there will be a lot more willingness and openness to write off or provide abatements in 2020 versus 2021. What I've seen is a lot of projections going back to normal. Taking the opposite side, landlords, always helpful to review tenants' financials when you're negotiating with them, to the extent that you can have some third party kind of intermediate and make sure that everybody's on the same page about the same numbers. That's great. Consider hedging short-term percentage rents and then switching back to fixed and escalators in 2021. what seems to be going on, short-term incentives, deferrals, abatements, with long-term rates kind of back where they were pre-COVID in 2021 and 2022, but definitely important, I think, to consider the factors that are around the tenant's business and whether or not the location is as attractive for the tenant as it was before the pandemic. Trying to get market comparable rents per square foot for the type of property and the type of business that you're marketing to. And landlords obviously have this big preference for the deferrals, but it can overlever the tenants in the long term, so something to be aware of. Also, I think it's worth probably thinking about, as you negotiate with tenants, potentially trying to maximize just your tax benefit for your losses in 2020, which can get carried back versus maybe, deferring a bunch of rent and then having your tenant go poof in a year or two. So that's kind of tenants and landlords. I know this is a lot of text slides. Couple final consideration. I think it's helpful to always communicate proactively with counterparties. For example, if you're a tenant, you intend not to pay rent, better to communicate that up front versus just not paying. Share useful information on both sides if available, whether it's business level financials or local market data. Try to reach consensual resolutions with tenants. Always cheaper to almost always cheaper to cut a deal than to go litigate or argue. And work together to create long-term value for the community. So my example is, you have a landlord and a tenant who agree to a deal to keep a restaurant open, or a retailer. They're both going to make more money in 2021, 2022 versus someone with an empty building and someone with no business. So those are my quick thoughts on what's going on in the market, and happy to take any questions via email or follow up.
Joseph, I was just going to say, if, the EDC is not on now, but if they're looking, you should also, if you send me a little bit of a blurb about your background, we could introduce you to the team from the EDC about being a resource as part of the small business services, because there also have been some laws about personal guarantees, et cetera, in terms of leases. And I think that especially small tenants sometimes don't understand what their rights are and what opportunities there are, because the landlords also don't want to lose their tenants. And I know there's been a lot of situations where people are going from monthly pay to something that looks more like a percentage of revenue, and really working with their tenants, because they don't want the tenants to go out of business. Everybody's on the same page with the same incentive.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree. And there's a whole piece that's not addressed here, which is the kind of superimposition of regulations on top of this. So, there may be regulatory strategies on both sides that aren't addressed here, that sort of assumes that you're just a small to medium sized tenant without any specific regulatory leverage working in your favor. But there's obviously moratorium and things like that work on the other side.
yeah, to Karen and Jay, to the extent that you're either, people are calling and looking for help, Joseph volunteered his services to help guide small businesses and how to deal with lease renegotiation and other issues they may be encountering. So I just wanted to put that out there. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? If not, we'll move to Jay. Okay, thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
Jay, I think you're going to get the screen in 1 second.
Who's
All
getting
right.
the screen next?
Good
Jay?
evening.
Okay.
Hi there. All right. How's everybody doing? We're making it through this. I always like to make sure we're doing okay with these things. I know they can be long, but let's get through it. We've been talking about macroeconomics and big overarching ways to get to the capital R recovery. But what is economic behavior but human behavior? So right now, I'd like to talk a little bit about humanity and the humans of our neighborhood that we all serve. And I am delighted to talk to you a little bit about what we've done in food relief, what we've done in sort of economic development, building towards that, really looking at the human cost and how we can not only rebuild our businesses, but help rebuild and serve the lives of our fellow neighbors. Sustainable United Neighborhoods is the name of the organization. I've had a chance to speak before this committee before, so always a pleasure to be a part of it, and very insightful stuff we've heard thus far. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm also going to ask you to check your audio because there will be a video embedded in this brief presentation. But we're going to chat real quick about how Sustainable United Neighborhoods and our partner, the Bushwick Generator, were able to look to redefining resilience. We, of course, have been inside the Bushwick Generator as a partner, as their anchor not-for-profit, since basically early 2019. So we've now been there almost 2 years. And, you know, before the pandemic, lots of great stuff was happening, some of which I've come to the committee and come to the community board at large to share. But you're looking at a space that's been an innovation and tech hub, really serving as a neighborhood lab. We've done town halls, and we've done a lot of good outreach to our local community, specifically focused on the LMI populations. Some of our programs include an artist in residence. We have 2 artists in residence that are still even able to use the space during the pandemic. We've hosted galleries and exhibitions there. We've been recruiting local artists. We were a green jobs platform. We were a space to recruit green jobs, specifically with clean economy partners like Con Edison through state funding from NYSERDA. We also were a training spot for PSEG. This helped us present the Brooklyn Green Summit. We did that in October of 2019. As you can see here, it was headlined by over 150 attendees from throughout the neighborhood, several area high schools. And importantly, we heard from city, state, and federal policymakers to help really give us a lay of the land, how we make the Green New Deal a reality. Sun truly believes we specialize in the sort of rubber meets the road approach to this green conversation, all of which speaks to not only community resiliency and sustainability here in Brooklyn, but helping out throughout our country. Here we went an opportunity with FEMA to do some relief efforts in Vieques Island, and we've used the space as a place to be able to fundraise and develop projects in response to not only resilience here, but in Puerto Rico. And when we talk about neighborhood sector partners, we've done our best to be a great host to events, including our last year around this time. We had a holiday bazaar at the Bushwick Generator with over 15 artisan and craft making businesses. We also held a minority business roundtable with the Carib Business Network and SBDC. So we've been ensuring that we have our workshops in minority and women-owned enterprises getting a chance to get a seat at the table. And it's not just a table, but a chance for our young people to get a chance to relax on the couch. We've held our gaming haven with NYCHA residents. It's been led by our NYCHA resident neighbors, being able to focus on esports and tabletop games. We brought in Pratt, who was able to not only define placemaking for the neighborhood, but look at ways for us to innovate and utilize not just the Bushwick Generator, but historic cultural touchstones like La Marqueta de Williamsburg, who turns 80 next year. So we had a great partnership with Pratt. And then, of course, you all know what happened in March. Really, the word's been overused, but pivots. We've thought through it. We said strategically what was our core mission, and we stayed true to that. And I think they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, hopefully this will give you more than 1 million feels as we look at how we responded in pivoting during this pandemic. I'm going to play, and hopefully your audio carries through. If it doesn't, just chime in.
My people, la familia. See, baby, don't be hungry out here.
Now, you all know that I told you that there were going to be meals that are delivered to families, organizations. But let's go inside and let's find out what's going on. What kind of food we get. I'm working with the NYPD for something with the People's Office with the Chief of Staff, right?
Appreciate what you guys are doing. Very much appreciated throughout the communities, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you so much.
And we're very grateful.
So Diego. I'm working with Masuda, Southside United in Brooklyn, New York. We got a lot of food from you guys at World Central Kitchen as a huge help. We're really smoothly yesterday. We let each tenant, each family got their own, packed meal, and that'll last for a few days. And that's definitely a huge help to us and our organization because we can allow not just to give food to our clients through our pantry on Tuesdays, but also give to our tenants, which will last them throughout the week, hopefully, and help make this whole situation a little easier.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna salute you.
People want their produce.
Thank you very much. We very appreciate it. Thank you to everything and to all the first responders and all the medical people that are helping us out. Thank you and be safe.
So I hope that was able to be heard and seen. I couldn't tell. Did everybody get good audio feedback on that? I can't tell.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you, Jay, for sharing.
So that just gives you, thank you, Toby, and appreciate that. Sometimes the audio doesn't work on these web elements. That just gives us a snapshot of the countless, literally thousands of hours of volunteer effort, so much food moving throughout our community. And, I wanted to give you a little bit more feedback. These were with amazing collaborations, partnerships. All of the major community organizations in North Brooklyn either received food through Sun from World Central Kitchen at the height of the lockdown, or became collaborative partners where we were able to get more. Some photos from our 9/11 day of service. We moved 3,000 meals at Bushwick houses. And we also worked with great partners throughout the region. FarmLink potatoes from Maine. We moved 22 pallets of potatoes in 2 days. We worked with other folks from Upstate Corn and Soybean Growers Association of New York. And again, it was a true community collaboration. But, they like to see these impact statements. They like to see these numbers. And I think it's important to see what one small organization who did not do food before the pandemic. We were not a food not-for-profit. Community resiliency was important, but it wasn't our core mission. During the lockdown, we've done well over 200,000 prepared meals. We had our volunteers at home do washable masks, roughly 600. Every member of our food access team received a reusable washable mask. At this time, this says 300 tons. We're right now around 400 tons from throughout the communities, from throughout the region, including like those Maine farmers I mentioned. And we're nearing 35,000 households, predominantly through Brooklyn and Queens, including our undocumented and non-traditional workers. So when we talk about those restaurants who closed, when we talk about those displaced from the retail and the creative space with the venues, it's those folks that came without any intake forms, no question asked, no income eligibility, no means testing. If you needed food, we gave it to you. And that's really the kind of heart of service that we like to see in Brooklyn. They say, show love, it's the Brooklyn way. The dollars and cents, of course, are important too, because it's really keen to see how quickly it needs to be collaborated, but also how much support we genuinely need from our city, state, and local officials. We moved around $3.2 million worth of in-kind donations. We got about a couple of thousand, tens of thousands, 50,000 in foundation. But, sadly, a lot of the larger organizations are already there. They're well established. We respect that. But we were only able to receive, given all of that impact, only $10,000 in taxpayer funds flowed to Sun. And we've done such great work with our corporate partners and private donors to pick up that slack. All total, we brought in 100 volunteers in the middle of a pandemic, safely doing social distancing with masks, gloves, face shields, with a roughly 11,000 hours of service. And the government likes to say GSA uses a $25 an hour rate kind of average for volunteer work. And that translates to roughly $300,000 in human impact direct to these neighborhoods we serve. All of this pointing to, we really do share what Chef Jose Andres says. This is a national security issue. This is an issue that needs every layer of our team, every layer of our government to be involved in. And that includes our help from the community boards. We like to give a quick sample of how we use that $10,000 to give you kind of a lay of the land. What does it go to? Of course, it was a much needed shot in the arm. We specifically received New York City Civic Impact funding, and we did our best to make sure it was well spent. We used it to give 4 free farmers markets that helped us serve 3,000 households during the month of June. It brought us an online and dedicated campaign to bring in volunteers, and we activated at least 60 volunteers in that month as people became more comfortable working in the pandemic. So that was one element. And then, of course, you got to look after your volunteers. That money helped us not only do our social distancing with the masks and the tapes and the decals, but also allowed us to do a small volunteer appreciation for 25 of our highest hours volunteers. And this is that event. We're bringing in our community for that event, making sure we take care of the volunteers that help us out. And you can see just briefly how some of them responded. Again, these are your neighbors, these are our community, and they want to serve. They just need to be given access and pathways to do so, all of which points to you just got to look out for the people helping. They all received a personal certificate of appreciation in addition to the sun shirt and mask. People often ask, wow, okay, you guys are busy this summer, and we like to say, we're not stopping. We have a lot of stuff in the fire that serves this community, and Ms. Moskowitz asked us to point to some of our ongoing economic impact efforts. We're looking at resiliency long-term. Sure, you can give a man a fish, they eat for a day, but if you teach a man to fish, they eat for a lifetime. You've all heard that mantra. So we've been closely working with our resident associations, 2 of which approached us, and we're working on urban farming on NYCHA properties. This is a big, hairy, audacious goal with a lot of steps, and we would love the community board to provide a letter of support for that. We still move tons of food each week, and food sourcing is always a concern. We'll speak to that as far as holiday relief, what we did with turkeys for other resident associations at Thanksgiving, and where we can go for the winter holidays. And then, of course, our artists and residents, thinking ways to get them involved, our youth at home. We've recruited from 14 to 19, an art access approach virtually with an artist workshop from our 2 artists in residence. And we're still helping our businesses, not only with the bid, but other area businesses like our neighbor Wonton Food, explore ways to improve their built environment, specifically looking at air quality and other energy incentives, energy efficiency incentives. All of in backdrop of our communities definitely needing things to do. And so we went ahead and provided community opportunities in an outdoor, socially distanced way, including our costume crawl. And of course, what we just recently did this past weekend, a paranda on Graham Avenue, coordinated with the Graham Ave bid. And coming up, at least 17 organizations and elected leaders, a North Brooklyn Holiday Relief Coalition. On December 22nd, our goal is to feed at least 1,000 of our North Brooklyn households a genuine holiday meal relief with fresh produce, pantry goods, and even a roaster chicken and other goodies we're still working on. So that's kind of our thoughts. We're really excited to be a part of this community and continue to grow with you in the community board. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm more than happy to entertain any comments or questions.
Thank you,
What
Jay. If
other-
you don't mind sharing the presentation.
Certainly, I'll provide the link.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Do you have a list, or is it up on the website of the organizations that you collab with?
Yes, I can easily provide that to you. I'm happy to send that. We're still ironing down and getting other organizations to sign on, so we haven't gone public yet. We've been basically all of the organizations are outreaching to their partners, but I can, Community Dialogue NYC, Community Board 4 is on board, the 83rd Civic, Precinct Council is on board. Velasquez, Salazar, Reynoso, and Davila are all weighing in and providing support for this large-scale, high-visibility food distro relief effort from 2 to 7 on December 22nd.
Okay, great.
So I provided the link to that that kind of overview, and again, always appreciate being able to come to Community Board 1. as a personal aside, I know we've tried to reach out to the community board, and I know you guys have been super busy with not only relief for the small businesses, but also having to be shut down, in effect, doing everything virtual. But we would very much love Community Board 1 to be involved, and whether it's use of a cargo van or getting the word out, we would be willing and very eager to discuss how we can work with CB1.
Just wanted to say, yeah.
Does anybody else have
Thank
any
you.
other questions or comments?
No, I just want to say thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, great work, Jay. And you should also
Glad
connect
to be a part
separately
of it.
and Evergreen, because there's a lot of great work that organization does in the community and could give you
Yes, of
additional.
course.
Okay, so if no one has
Yes.
any questions or comments, I think I don't think we had a quorum here. It was just me and you, Karen. So, thank you all.
I have a question.
ahead.
I noticed that the meeting wasn't up on the website.
We're trying
that-
to get our ducks in a row with do it. So that's the problem. They require a lot of lead time, and I didn't have that.
Okay,
Alright.
so we'll,
So
I
we're working on it.
Yeah, I thought it was important to get the EDC to come and share with us what they're doing, because I had heard about some of these programs. So I'm gonna try to get some dates for January and February and try to do the meetings regularly. And if you have things that you're coming across as evergreen or through your network, Karen, would love your help in getting relevant voices to the table so we could all get up to speed on what's going on, and the resources available, especially in this time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all, and have a lovely evening, and have a happy holidays to everybody, and Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. Thank you, Marie, for arranging.
Okay, I'm shutting you down as soon as everyone's off.